That's not acceptable. Probably gonna wear down the
cannot.
This guy has right now really say my
10 tablets across 5 different brands, and he's only got 2 hands. Welcome everyone, this is Ergo Josh, and today I'm going to tell you every single thing that you need to know to purchase a new digital tablet for yourself in 2022. I want to mention early, and I'll probably mention it again and again, that these are my own opinions. I have been using digital art tablets since 2013 when I had my first Wacom Intuos, and I thought that I would be in a great position to be able to share with you a lot of knowledge, because not only have I been using them for a fairly decent amount of time, I have access to a lot of them. So for example, when I talk about operating system compatibility, I'm probably going to mention Mac OS, Windows, Android, even iPad OS, but I'm not going to mention Linux because I don't use it. The goal of this video is to show you exactly as much as I can what it's really like to have and use each one of these different tablets here, not just regurgitate different facts that you can find for yourself really easily online. I've spent hours using these tablets to create the work that I normally create, not just doing specific little tests that don't really mimic a real world experience for the average artist. Now, if you want a much more detailed disclaimer, I actually have that, and the timestamp is going to be here, and probably you saw it in the beginning of the video, and I'm putting it at the end of the video because I know many of you, probably over 90%, don't really care about that. You just want to see what I have to say, but I want to be as transparent as possible. So let's go ahead and go through really quickly the overview of how this video is going to be structured. First, we're going to compare 12 different categories for what I think is the most important aspects to consider for your average consumer. I'm going to be going through each one of those categories, naming the pros and cons, and referencing whichever tablet here is applicable to that category. After that, I have come up with about 8 different types of people or scenarios and picked one tablet that is the best option for that person, along with some runner-ups or some alternative options if I felt that was necessary. This video, I wanted to keep it strictly as realistic as possible. I tried to keep it like 95% of the tablets I'm going to mention are going to be tablets that I have here today in front of me that I've been using for the past few weeks, or tablets that I have owned myself in the past and used for an extended period of time. I'm going to try my best not to mention tablets that I have not touched or used myself extensively. No matter how good they might be or cheap they might be, I recommend that you find others who are experienced with those tablets if you're really interested in them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first category, which is going to be the 4 different types of tablets. All right, now it's daytime. Let's go ahead and talk about the different types of tablets. So first we have the standard digitizer tablet, and these tablets are just mapped to the screen with a very high resolution. Usually you're going to see something like 5080 LPI, lines per inch. So that's literally how many lines of data are collected per inch on the surface. So it's very high resolution. These tablets usually work with any computer, even if they have old specs or really low levels of hardware, it's still probably going to work. Once you have a felt tip pen, they can make a pretty nice sound. It's a very rough plastic screen, as you can hear that. And it's a very, very nice natural drawing experience that most people are going to be used to coming from your traditional media like pencil on paper. However, one downside to them is that they do have the largest learning curve, because what you're doing is you're drawing and then looking at another screen or my Cintiq here, and that's not something we're used to, right? We're used to actually looking at the thing that we draw as we draw. So there's a kind of a hand-eye coordination shift that you have to make that takes a while depending on how good you want to be with the tablet. These types of tablets end up being the best when it comes to ergonomics and just trying to replace using your mouse for things. So I love to keep one around because I like to use these for video editing. All right, so I'm going to put these off to the side here, and then we're going to talk about the second type, which is a display tablet. So with a display tablet, you're actually drawing directly on the screen itself, and the drawing experience is less related to how accurate the digitizer is with that 5080 LPI we were talking about earlier, and more related to the resolution of the screen itself. So for example, this one is 1080p, this one in big contrast is just 3 inches bigger, but it's 4K. So how it looks and that experience is going to be a little bit different, especially when the sizes go up. Now, all of these tablets do require a computer to use. So they can't, it's just dead right now. There's no power. This one right here, the Huion 24, the Canvas Pro 4K,
actually has something on the screen right now because it is plugged into my MacBook Pro, and it also has power, and it has a data cable as well that it's sending everything to. So sometimes you can also use the USB-C cable to send both data and video, but most tablets still don't have that feature where you can just use one cable. This one does have it. I just prefer to use this for this setup since I've got a ton of tablets here. Now, unfortunately, the downside to these is that they are bulky. However, in good contrast to that, they are much easier for beginners to use, no matter if you're a beginner at art in general or you're just a beginner at tablets, because you're actually looking at the screen right here. If I pull across a different canvas here, you can see I can just scribble here, and it's what you see is what you get. And it just makes sense to anybody. I find these tablets are best for just your overall digital art experience and also for making very precise line work, because oftentimes you need to draw over a line you've done before, and trying to do that when you can't see what you're doing is really tough. You have to have very, very, very good kind of hand-eye coordination when you're using these types of tablets here without a screen, or else you're going to find yourself undoing a lot of times to try to get that perfect stroke. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the mobile tablets. I have kind of like 3.5 different tablets here. These tablets are the first type of tablet you can actually use without connecting to a separate computer or phone. You can just turn it on and, get going. And they come with, usually the same brand will offer a pen of some sort to use with it that works through Bluetooth. But there are also different brands like Wacom that make pen technology that you can use with these tablets as well. So they are extremely versatile here, because if you just take a look at this tablet here, this is the Samsung Galaxy S8 Ultra, I can just use it to use my finger to unlock it, and that's really, really cool and efficient. And they are very, very small and thin for having a whole device, a computer inside of them. They're like the same size as your standard graphic tablet. They usually have superior touch sensitivity. You can actually use touch to navigate different windows when you're working on your artwork, and it works and it's reliable, and they have excellent sharpness, very, very sharp display quality that you're not really going to see something as crisp on these tablets, especially since they have matte screen protectors built in, a matte film, or they have etched glass. And obviously, because of their size and the fact that they come with the whole computer themselves, they tend to be great for portability. Now, the fourth category is something I don't really have here, and that's going to be your convertible 2-in-1 laptop that also usually comes with a pen or stylus or something that you can buy separately that you can draw with. The problem is that they're usually not as great of an experience because they usually use like Windows N-Trig technology or Wacom AES technology, which is the better of the two sometimes, but it's still not as great for when you compare it for drawing as a device that's actually designed for drawing only. So manufacturers for these types of tablets, computer convertible things, are pretty much any laptop manufacturer. So you're looking at Microsoft with the Surface tablets and the Surface Gos. They have their own pens and styluses. You have Samsung with they have their tablets, but they also have their laptops, which I believe work with the same S Pens that work with the tablets. Wacom also has the Wacom Mobile Studio Pros that they sell. But that brings me to the negative of this type of device. They're usually pretty old and outdated. And so you're going to see that the chips that they have, they're just either old or very low powered hardware, and they don't update them as much, and they tend to be loud and noisy because of it. So I normally don't really recommend those, especially the Wacom Mobile Studio Pros. Those are extremely overpriced for what they can do today. So the second category we're going to move into now is tablet size. So I want to start off with these two standard tablets here. Basically, we have the medium size with the ZenSlabs and the large size with the Wacom tablets. And they also make much smaller tablets, which I tend to not really recommend them. They're a little bit too small for me. I have reasonably large hands, 8 inches from the palm to the tip of my finger. So if you have much smaller hands, it might be better for you to get an even smaller one. But I find my favorite is the medium-sized tablet here. It's just the easiest to use. It's nice to have that benefit of being able to reach more without having to move more of your arm. But I also like having the large one when you're using multiple screens laid out at the same time. So if I can have one screen, I have 2 screens back there, and half of this tablet is for one, half for the other. And it's a lot easier to switch that way. So typically I like to switch between just using this as one screen when I'm drawing, or if I'm editing, I use it for both screens. Now, moving up or kind of down in size, we have the mobile tablets, and these kind of start out at this size. There's also the iPad mini. I have not tested that, but I believe that's even smaller than these. And these are pretty comfortable to use. They're not bad, actually. So it's even more portable than mobile tablets are already super portable. I would not recommend using the S8, to be honest, because the form factor for this makes it really restrictive to draw on for most applications, but I'll talk later about that. Next up, you're going to have your tablets that are even bigger. These are pretty much the biggest ones you're going to have available to you. This is the iPad Pro right here and the Samsung Galaxy Ultra. The S Plus I have also had in my hands for a little bit as well. That's around this size. It's 12 inches. But interestingly enough, I do enjoy using the iPad more for its size than this in certain cases because it has another aspect ratio again, which I'll get more into. But it is much nicer. Like, this is a very comfortable environment for me to actually use to paint in Clip Studio with. One really cool thing again, though, about the Galaxy Ultra, which is 14.6 inches, I believe, is that actually, if you look at this, this is a 16-inch display, 9x16. It's the same height, but it's just a little bit shorter than this. So it's a very, very similar experience to actually drawing on a 16-inch device, even though it's rated for only 14 inches. So putting these to this side here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the display tablets. So right now we are talking about the Wacom One. This is a 13-inch device, and it's pretty decent to use as well. I find it's very comfortable. Not too small for me, but for me, the resolution, since this is only 1080p, makes it a little bit blurry, but it's definitely doable. I actually have a video on my channel. You can check it out and see me using it. And now we have a couple of 16-inch tablets, and this is, I think, my favorite size to use because for me, it's still pretty portable. And the screen size is nice and wide, which is great since these are computer tablets. That wider real estate is nice because you can have your settings and everything on one side in a nice squarish menu area or drawing region, which is really, really nice to have. Wacom Cintiq Pro is quite a bit heavier than the X Pen one. Now with these tablets here that you see, this is the 24-inch Huion Canvas Pro 4K. Once you get into 24 inches and above, again, they're kind of following the standard monitor sizes as they go up. Things start to get really big and bulky and heavy. This display is a great size to draw on. Honestly, I feel like it's a really good medium that's actually available, and in between, when you have a 4K display that's 24 inches, it looks really, really good. But again, this can be pretty heavy, but it's not too bad when it comes to desk size. If you have a standard desk that's like 30 inches deep, let's say 5 feet wide, it's not too bad to have on your desk. You can still have your peripherals and things like that around you and use a keyboard. So you can see here, put the stand or the legs up here. So reach around, stand it up. You can see I can pretty much keep this over here. I could keep a mouse over here if I wanted to. I could still have my keyboard here. Some people find a way to fix it up like that. And it's not bad. It's really quite a doable size. So putting this back down, we'll talk about the last tablet I have here, the Monster. This guy is going to tell you what to do. He's going to tell you to cook dinner for him. He's going to tell you to cook breakfast. He is going to demand the entire layout of the house. This is the Wacom Cintiq Pro 13 that I'm actually reading my script off of. It is huge. He's a big boy. I just realized you can't even see me right now. He's like, I'm the most important one here. You don't need to be seen, Josh. And yeah, this guy has really, really abused me over the years. Very heavy. If you want to get one of these, try to have someone help you set it up because it is annoying. It is honestly very annoying. It feels ridiculously bigger than the 24 inch. As a matter of fact, this bezel right here is like 3.5 inches. So in actuality, I measured it out. This is a 32-inch display, but it actually is 38 inches across. So it feels like a small TV. But I gotta say, it's pretty nice to draw on when you have these big flowing gestures. And it is really, really nice if you are a content creator as well, because you can draw on it, look at chat, look at all of your references. You don't need to have a second screen a lot of the times, or a second monitor to multitask with. It's pretty good. So now I want to talk about what I mentioned before as I bring these tablets back, which is aspect ratio. which is a pretty important thing to take into consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and get the iPad Pro here to compare. The iPad Pro's aspect ratio is 4:3, which is really nice because you have more vertical space. But when you compare it to something like the Samsung Galaxy S8 Ultra, it is 16:10, which is very close to 16:9. That's why this one has more width here. And it's nice when you're using applications like Clip Studio Paint, because what happens is Clip Studio Paint has not been very optimized for a laptop kind of like mobile tablet environment. It's copy and paste what it is that you could get on your desktop computer. So when you have these bars and all these menus, it's really nice to use. And it's a great experience to be able to still have space on the right side to draw with. That's why I personally have a hard time sometimes using Clip Studio with my iPad, because on my iPad, what tends to happen is I just run out of room to paint with, and you can see here the UI is just very different. All right, so now I'm going to go into operating system compatibility. So all of them pretty much work. All these different tablets you see here pretty much work on both Windows and Mac operating systems. But some of them also work on Android. So like the Wacom One, for example, or the XP Pen can just be plugged into an Android device and you can use it as a second display, which is the name of one of the features, and just carry on from there, even with a phone sometimes. I have found though that if you have multiple drivers, then it will work not too well on Windows. If you have a lot of different tablets plugged into a MacBook, however, to a Mac device, then you can actually have several different tablets. So I was actually able to run my Huion, my XP Pen, and my Wacom tablets all with the first try, plugging them all in or unplugging them. They all just worked and they didn't really disconnect on me when I plugged in something else. Now, when it comes to drivers and all of that and the overall experience, I found that the drivers updates usually take a little bit longer to come out for Mac, and for Windows, it's the first thing. Kind of Macs had less quirks, but they do have their own quirks, especially when you consider the new M1 Macs. Those chips have not been completely supported yet. There's still a few little glitches, but don't get me wrong, like pretty much the glitches that happen on tablets have really gotten a lot better over the years. You're not going to be constantly unplugging and resetting things like you were when I was starting out in digital art. So now let's get into the third category, which is just going to be the pen and stylus design. And so why not start off with the Wacom tablet, the Wacom pen design here. Basically all of the display and standard graphic tablets, they're going to come with a design that has a barrel, a pretty thick barrel like this, and they're made to mimic a paintbrush. Basically, like holding a paintbrush, you can kind of get an idea that this would be a similar shape, if not a little bit shorter than a typical one. And that's where you kind of see this design consistency across different brands and different types of pens. So you can see I have the Wacom one in the middle, Wacom in the middle, the Huion on the left, and then this is an XP pen. They all look very similar. So the differences you're going to see is that on the Wacom Pro pen, which is my favorite of these types, is going to be that you have two buttons, right? The nib, of course, and then you're going to have an eraser. So that's all the ways you can interact with that. But then you look at the Huion, it doesn't have an eraser, but it has two buttons and the nib, right? A little bit of a different shape to the barrel, changes the experience a little bit because this can touch the screen a little bit earlier when you tilt it. And then you're going to have the XP pen. So the XP pen, it looks like it has two buttons, but it's really only one functioning for the TP, the one that comes with the TP, the 16 TP 4K at least. And it does have an eraser, which is really nice here. One thing I don't really like about this one though, is that it doesn't have a grip at all, whereas these two do have a grip. And the Huion pen is a little bit longer than the Wacom one, which I do like actually, because I can kind of hold it like this. Let me show you. I really like to hold it like this sometimes. But again, that issue comes up where at this angle, because it's so long, I'm actually touching the rounded edge here instead of the tip. So I kind of have to adjust for that, but it's still nice to be able to have that feel to it. So in some ways, I kind of like this more than the Wacom pen. But the Wacom pens, they make a lot of different ones. They have this 3D one, which has 3 buttons. So that helps with 3D artists somehow, but they got rid of the eraser. I like that. Then they also have one that comes with the, lesser tablets, like the Wacom one. This one just has 1 button. It's a little bit shorter, but the cool thing is it works on multiple different tablets. This can actually work on the Galaxy Tab Ultra, which is really nice. This is another one. I think they kind of like work together with Statler, and it's just, again, using that Wacom EMR technology that they use with other devices, and it can work on devices like the Samsung Galaxy tablets as well. And this is a really long one, so it can be a really, really cool experience. And because of that, it has, it's kind of a lightweight, but it doesn't feel that bad because of the length. And I like that because I can kind of apply balancing pressure to it. Now, the ZenSlabs tablet is really nice. This one right here, I really love this pencil case. It feels like you get so many goodies in it, and it comes with 2 pens for just this tablet. And you get a thick one that has 3 buttons and an eraser. Pretty incredible. This is really, really nice. And for some reason, yeah, I forgot about this one. I think I might like this one better if I could just get the technology of the Wacom pressure sensitivity with the ZenSlabs tablet. But this is kind of slick and shiny. You can see that. This has got a much more matte finish, which is similar to the Huion here. And I really like that. I really prefer this over the kind of slick one. But the slick one has more thickness. Like I can squeeze it. I don't really feel like I can squeeze it on the Huion, but I can here. I feel like it's a little bit thicker. You can get grips to put on the pens. So this is the Plus Ergo brand. Hopefully this will show up here. Not sponsored, even though, Ergo is pretty cool. Pen grips for the Wacom styluses and for the Apple Pencil. And I really like these. I sometimes I don't like them and I just want to use a regular one. So I have another one to just switch out. But sometimes this is really, really helpful. Now let's move on to the portable tablet experience here. This experience is pretty nice. So you have the S Pen. Now I didn't like the 7th generation, the S7, because the pen was even smaller and cheaper feeling. This is very light, but because of 2 things, I actually do like to use this. Actually 3 things. So the first one is going to be the fact that it has a flat edge. I love that. Basically, we're all used to your typical pencil in school, your yellow pencil made by Ticonderoga or whatever. It makes it a lot easier for me to hold. But if you listen, you can see that's a problem because I like to keep my thumb here to apply pressure and balance it out, but the button is recessed. One button is recessed right there, and I accidentally press it a lot. I don't like that because on this particular tablet and the way it's designed, that button is mapped to a lot of things that are operating system specific, and I don't like it. I don't like Bixby. I don't like the air gesture. They're unreliable. They don't work or trigger very much. I think I actually turned it off here, but yeah, they're really unreliable. If you thought that tapping with the Apple Pencil on the double tap area was hit or miss, this is really hit or miss. You're not going to be conducting a service at an orchestra and thinking that you're going to be hitting all the different gestures and shortcuts when you paint. It's just not going to work. However, one thing I do really like about this pen is going to be the fact that it has a very small, very precise little tip here. And it has one of the best experiences. Really, really love that tip. Is very, very accurate. And the way it feels on the glass is really nice. I would not recommend using this with a screen protector because since it's rubber and it kind of bends, it's probably going to wear down a lot and you want to keep this thing sharp. Now, I'd say my second favorite over my first favorite being the design overall of the thick ZenSlabs pen right here. This one, if you remember, it's going to be the Apple Pencil. Because I love the weight of it. It's quite heavy for what it is. I wish it was a little bit longer. That would be really, really nice. But the nib, you can unscrew it and replace it. Some people think that it wears down really quickly. I don't. Just depends on how heavy-handed you are. I'm pretty light-handed. The nib is big, right? And it doesn't move. So I like how it's like this realistic pencil tip. And as it wears down, it kind of rounds itself, right? It doesn't just have a flat edge like on these types of styluses. And when you draw on this edge, it just kind of flips, and that's pretty annoying. What happens with the Apple Pencil is that this is the edge that it wears away on, and it just kind of constantly gets a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter, but it continues to wear away until the tip is just too thick or that metal bit is exposed at some point. And I like that experience more. The bounciness of the nib is, I find that annoying. You can hear that. Some ASMR for you there. They kind of bounce in there. I don't really like that because I don't, I'm not really trying to really emulate a brush. I want to emulate a pencil. And I find that a little bit, it's not bad. It's just when I've experienced this, I prefer this over that. But I have pretty shaky hands compared to the average person. So I like to apply a decent amount of force down with my thumb against my hand, and then I can draw better. And the heavier it is, it's even better for me. Kind of like, a weighted blanket. But the lighter it is, I feel like I have to just stabilize myself and my whole body to be able to get a consistent stroke out of it. So depending on who you are, you might prefer the lighter pencil. So that was number 4, pen design. Very, very important. But now we're going to move on to number 5, which is ergonomics. And so basically what you're going to want is a standard office ergonomics. So you're going to want to have feet flat. I'm trying to do it now on the ground, not dangling above it. You're going to want your elbows at the same height as the table. And usually you're going to want your armrest at the same height as the table, so your elbow's going to rest on it. Then you're going to want the center of your monitor to be at your eye level, so you don't have to move your eye around to see everything as much. Just want to be able to look straight ahead and have that be the center. Currently, I don't have that set up for me right now, so that's not the best. I have to look down for the center. Then you want the brightness of the area around the monitor you're looking at, whether that's going to be a Cintiq or this kind of setup where I would have a standard tablet drawing and then looking at my screen. You want the area around it to be lit around the same brightness. So either lower the brightness of the monitor to match your surroundings or brighten up the area. That's going to be something that will really help reduce eye strain. Basically, once you have all that, you're at pretty much your standard desk setup for any type of desk office work. And the only tablet that allows that type of maximum ergonomics where you're flat and your back is up straight against the chair is going to be your standard graphic tablet, because you could sit and draw like this, regardless of what angle. Now, some people, I know a lot of you, especially because this is how we do things in school, it's where we all start with stuff. A lot of people just have their tablet here like this. And if I get my S Pen, they'll just be like this, looking straight down and craning their neck like this, causing tension here and causing tension to their back and their lower back because it's not supported. So you're all types of messed up your entire way. And that's going to cause a lot of strain on your muscles and potentially bones. So the best thing to do in that case is to get a stand. No matter how insignificant it might seem, I can just grab a stand off on my other desk here. You can see this one in particular. This is one of my favorites called the Parcslope. This is from a brand called 12 South. I really, really recommend them. I actually have an affiliate link in the description. You can check that out. I've been using the other iteration that's holding up my MacBook for years. And this gives you a nice immediate experience right there, raising it about 20 to 30 degrees. And it's already much better. My back is much straighter than it was. And my eyes are still looking down, but I don't have to bend my neck nearly as much. And I can draw and have a much better experience on it. So this is already way, way better. Because of this, honestly, I don't buy any stands from any tablet manufacturer. Like, I don't buy the ones that Wacom offers for any of the smaller devices as well. You don't need to get cheaper stands that you can multi-purpose use for any tablet or phone like this, and you're going to be good to go. I can put my large Intuos on this. I can put the regular size one. I can put whatever tablet here. Actually, you can look at this. Boom. I can just straight up put my Wacom One on this device and it works. It's made to hold a whole MacBook. So it's a really great experience. So I recommend use it with a stand. Do not use it flat. But even then, sometimes you don't have to worry about that because flip it over, boom, you got legs that you can use. So pop it out. So right here, you can see, right? Tablet on top of another tablet, you get legs like that, right? That happens with the Cintiq 16 by the Wacom, Cintiq 16 Pro that they released in 2021, and the older one, if you could somehow find that. The XP Pen does not have legs, so keep that in mind. The Huion 24 Pro does have legs. You saw that earlier in the video. It has little standout legs, just like this design. And the Cintiq 24 and 32 that I have right over there, just the 32, they have legs as well. that just pop out like that. So make sure you use those because those make a big difference. I have also tried a lot of different stands that you can get to use these tablets, not just the 12 South one, the Parcslope, and I will link those in description. I keep them all around because I have a lot of things that can be propped up and they are super helpful and super cheap, ranging like, honestly, I have ones that are $25 and $50 that I've used for like 3-4 years straight and they look fine. Like they're really great purchases and they're going to be very helpful with whatever tablet or laptop that you're going to use. Now, one cool thing I will mention is that you could get something called the Sketchboard Pro. So I'm going to be right back. I need to get it. All right, I'm back. Yeah, this is the Sketchboard Pro. This baby is only made for the iPad. But the cool thing about it is that it lets you kind of use it like a real deal Cintiq. But what it does is you can just stuff your iPad in there and it creates a flush surface for you to rest your hand on as you draw. So what happens is you actually get the ability to use more of the screen as you draw, which is just amazing. I can just start drawing, right? And I can hold my hand here. And as you can see that I can make little marks on this edge. That's really, really nice. It really makes this feel completely different. And you can use it kind of in a more professional, kind of educational, academic method when you're doing these types of things. You can literally straight up bring this to a gesture figure drawing session and draw on it and go crazy with it, bear down on it, and it will work just like you expect. And what's even better is it has legs on the back like this. But it's an expensive device. It's 120 USD, but it's worth it. So far, it stood up the test of time. It's a year or two old, and it still looks pretty good. Now, for displays that are big, like the 24 and the 32 inch, you're not going to want to use a stand for that. For these types of devices, for the 24-inch Huion right here, you're going to want to get an arm. So the Huion has built-in VESA mount on the back, a standard one. And so I really recommend that you pick a tablet that has that available because that means you can use whatever arm you want. As a matter of fact, I happen to have a beefy monitor arm right next to me. Yeah, I could literally just put the Huion on this end right here and it would work and I could raise it up and down, swivel it, rotate it, whatever. I, again, recommend you stay away from any heavy display tablets that don't have built-in VESA mount and force you to use their own, unless you've got something like the 32-inch Wacom Cintiq. That design, that arm is really, it's proprietary, but you really need something like that if you want to actually hold that on a desk reliably. It's the same price as your typical high-end monitor arms that you're going to see from the brand that I just lifted up. Yeah, those arms are going to be relatively the same price as the crazy arm that you're going to see with the Cintiq. When it comes to the Cintiq 24, it uses that same arm. It's about $375 or $380. And yeah, it's pretty expensive, but it does the job. It's a really, really well-designed arm. It just sucks that you can't use it for anything else. So that honestly makes the Huion pretty compelling because it's the same size. It's got less bezels, less thick bezels. It only adds 2 inches to the diagonal. And you have your built-in VESA mount in the back. And so you can put it anywhere. Now let's talk about buttons really quick when it comes to ergonomics. Most tablets, at least display tablets, you're going to see here, they don't have any buttons. And also, I should have mentioned this earlier, don't mind these little plastic tabs. I just stuck them here because I wanted to use it to hold my keyboard up when it's at my second table right there. It does not come with that. It's flat, just like with the Wacom one that's 13 inches or this XP Pen or all of the mobile tablets or the Cintiq. They're pretty completely flat and devoid of buttons on the front. The Cintiq 32 and 24, however, they do have capacitive touch buttons. Mine still works after over 2 years, so that's great. And they released an update so that you can hold them to be able to activate them instead of accidentally touch them all the time, since you can't really see where they are. Now, directly on the device buttons are more common when it comes to graphic tablets that do not have a display like this ZenSlabs one you can see here. Or the Wacom large Intuos Pro Large that you see here, they've got this dial. I really don't like this design. It's not very reliable. You're not going to be using this very much. You're going to be using the buttons to control brush size and all that. These buttons I use them for like mapping, changing the mapping of the display, maybe sometimes doing brush size undo, but not very often. It's pretty slow. So I typically don't use these a lot. And I know most artists use a keyboard for all of their shortcuts. And if we're going to use these things, then it's just going to be to change some settings about the Wacom device itself or the Sense Labs itself. This design is really new that I've seen here, and this is the Wacom Cintiq Pro 16, and it has buttons in the back here. So these can be kind of annoying to reach, and it's actually very hard to know which one you're pressing. But once you get used to it, I actually really do like it. I like it to switch spaces on my Mac when I want to switch between different desktops, and then I can use it to switch mapping to, oh, if I want to use my two monitors above, when I'm over there, I can press a button and all of a sudden I'm mapping to both the monitors, and then I can press go back here immediately, which is really nice. A lot of these tablets don't have that feature. What I'm going to recommend to you is to purchase an external macro pad instead of a keyboard, because you can get really fast with that. So my current favorite is going to be the Moonlander. I have not used this as much, but because I've been using them, it has gone pretty well, and I can change different modes, and it has the most customizability of any macro tablet I've seen. It can work on literally any device because of how you calibrate it. Second place, honestly, I would recommend the Razer Tartarus here. This is a device I've used for a long time. It works really well on Windows. Not as well on Mac. You're going to have to use another software called Carabiner Elements. I'll try to link that in the description to get this to work okay. It's still not going to work nearly as well as it does on Windows, but the cool thing is you have different types of buttons. I love to use these for brush size and zooming in and out. And it's great for gaming because that's the intended use, so that's another bonus. In between, you're going to find a device like the Azeron keypad. Now, this is a very odd one. It's going to take some getting used to, but it has a lot of buttons as well, and you can flash different configurations to it, a limited amount, so that you can use it on any device you want to as well. But you have to have a Windows device to do that first. But you can always come down to getting a small keyboard like this and just memorizing it, putting your keyboard shortcuts in an easy to understand, easy to memorize fashion, and you're good to go. So now we're talking about app compatibility. This is going to be a little bit of a boring one, so I'll try to go through it quickly. The thing is that Wacom is really the oldest brand out there, and they have original technology patents. So they have the most compatibility because they've been able to work with everybody, get those patents in super early, work closely with brands like Adobe and all that. And so their products tend to work with the most software and the most platforms. Other brands can be a hit or miss from what I have noticed, and so it depends on what software you use. But since I mainly use Clip Studio Paint and Photoshop, all of the tablets here work pretty well with that. I will say that Huion does work a little bit better with Photoshop because of the flow setting. Now, Windows is the best environment for compatibility overall because most brands just work with Windows. That's just how it is. Unfortunately, Clip Studio Paint works noticeably better on Apple iOS than on Galaxy tablet. And so I have a really simple test to show you right here. Notice what happens when I do this, right? And these are both huge screens. This is 7,000 pixels wide right here. This is 10,000 pixel resolution, so huge canvases. Look at me moving around the canvas here on the tablet. This is the same app, both updated, both have their operating systems updated. And then look at this. Look how much it just feels like it's faster and snappier, like it's actually using 120 FPS. It's smoother on the iPad. Same application, and look how glitchy and clunky it is. It's like halfway in between as good as this is and the touch sensitivity on a touch-enabled display tablet. So keep that in mind if you really like to use Clip Studio Paint. You're also going to have a much better application experience when you're looking for different apps to draw in on the Apple Store. A lot of people say, oh, it has way less apps, but the apps are usually much better. There's a lot more professional apps that have a lot of really good support than you are going to have on the Google Play Store. So That's an unfortunate truth. However, there are still some pretty decent apps out there, especially if you're a beginner. Medibang, Ibis Paint, Autodesk Sketchbook is also in the store as well. So let's go into the driver software experience. I'll show you some stuff on screen for this. Wacom does tend to have the most in-depth UI. You have a lot of different options there, like I was mentioning, with being able to trigger changing the displays and the mapping, but it is less user-friendly looking, but you can easily learn it. Now, if we go to look at my Huion, for example, to compare, other brands do tend to be, easy to understand and accommodating, but they're a lot simpler. So you can see the pen settings here are very, very basic compared to the Wacom ones. They have a button to go to the store that I keep pressing, pressure sensitivity. You can change the buttons by just clicking on them here. And then that's pretty much it. If I go pull up the XP pen, it's even more fun. They've got some artwork in there, very good, easy to look at, but unfortunately I'd have to connect it for it to show up, but they've got a few settings here as well. One thing I do like, however, is that on this Huion, you can hold and press the power button to be able to get access to different settings. And so once you click user, you're able to just change things on the fly much faster. It is a much bigger pain to be able to change these settings, these types of settings on any Wacom tablet. This is really nice to be able to do, and then you can always just go to the defaults really quickly. This XP pen actually comes with, it's touch enabled, and so there's a touch button on the side here. The Wacom Intuos Pro has that, the large one, but you can also control brightness with these buttons on the top here. That's really, really nice to have, because I find that I want to change brightness a lot, and I really, really appreciate that. It's just a shame that this tablet's brightness range is not very good. When it comes to the mobile tablets that you have here, like the iPad Air or the iPad Pro or even the Samsung tablet, you're going to find that with those tablets, they always work. The pressure or the pen sensitivity is never just gonna go away. They are always gonna work. Worst thing you're gonna have to do is just plug in or just connect the pen to the back for a little bit for it to charge. The battery for these things does not run out that fast, and the pen for the Galaxy tablets, it still works. If it dies, you just won't be able to use the actual pen button, which I don't like anyways. And if you plug it in, like tap it, make it magnetized again onto the device, and then you take it off, it usually reconnects if it disconnects at all. And that's really quick and easy to solve, and then you're good to go. Drawing latency. Basically, that is how fast does the computer actually show you what you're doing. So if I have a pen here and I draw here, how quickly does it understand where my pen tip is in real time? So ideally in real life, what you have is that when you draw, something shows up on the paper immediately as you touch it. There's no lag at all. It's real time. But with these devices, they try to approximate that, and they're always going to kind of try to catch up. They can't figure it out fast enough. But actually what I said is not really accurate, because the computer needs to figure it out, the tablet needs to send it the information fast enough, and the display needs to be able to show it to you fast enough. So there's all kinds of steps in that process that can all introduce lag. You also have how strong your hardware is, and if there's any smoothing or stabilization effects being applied, which affects it as well. But for this type, really there's not going to be any lag, because you're really just going to be limited to your screen and your monitor that you have. That's usually just a standalone monitor, not having any drawing technology in it, is usually going to have a lot better specs than your drawing monitors, since they usually update them much more frequently than your drawing display tablets anyway. So when it comes to a monitor that you look at typically day to day, the standard refresh rate, how many times the whole entire image changes to show you what's going on, is going to be about 60 hertz. But 30 hertz will feel a little bit choppy to people who have used 60 hertz refresh screens, to most people. And if you're playing a game or drawing on it, you'll also probably notice it feels a little bit choppy. 120 hertz refresh rate is what a lot of these high-end tablets can do, like the iPad Pro, for example, or the Samsung Galaxy tablets. The recent ones that came out, they can do 120. And so those feel really good, but a lot of people can't actually notice it. And to be honest, you really won't be able to worry about it unless you use it and you get used to it, and then you move back to a slower device. That's when you're going to be like, oh yeah, I kind of feel it, right? But it's not really a big deal. Now I'm going to go ahead and read this, because we're going to start getting into a little bit more technicality here, because a lot of times we look at the specs and 20, it's not going to be that big of a deal difference either. This is why I think for the Wacom 1 has 26 milliseconds latency, and the Wacom 16 Pro here, even though this is way more expensive than this, like what is it, 4 times almost, this has 25 milliseconds. So I notice it because I'm used to using faster devices like the iPad Pro, but I can get used to that 25, 26 millisecond latency. Now the Huion here, the Huion Canvas Pro, is pretty damn quick. Tries its best to stay under where my hand is at all times. It is pretty quick because it's rated at 10 milliseconds latency, right? And then when you get even faster, we're getting into 8 milliseconds on the Cintiq 32 Pro. So I have a feeling that the size of the device reduces the latency for some reason. But if you shrink the screen size and you increase the resolution, it seems like the latency gets higher and it takes longer for it to figure out where your pen is. But for some reason, on the mobile tablets like the iPad and the Samsung, the ones that have 120 hertz refresh rate, and all of them, to be honest, they have incredibly fast drawing experience on them. The latency is very short. As a matter of fact, we're talking like 4, 5, 2.8 on the Ultra in some cases. It's really fast, but the caveat there is that you're not actually going to feel those speeds unless you're using an app that is optimized in the software to use that speed. So it's pretty much the Note app of every respective device. That's going to be the only place you're going to see that level of speed. If you have any slow hardware, or you have a huge canvas size and a big brush, or you're using apps like Procreate or Clip Studio Paint that have multiple different types of stabilization settings, all of those things are going to make the lag more and more apparent. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I took a little break here and set up all of these tablets so that we could look at the different displays and have the same image. Then we're going to compare the winner of all of these to something else later on in more detail in a different like B-roll footage. But yeah, so color gamut is measured by the Central Standard of Illumination. What is it? International Communication of Illumination, CIE 1931 standard. And there's another standard that I think it was created in 1976 that tweaked it to be more perceptible to the human eye. There is a really cool link before I continue that BenQ made a page that explains color gamut in really good detail. And basically I'm summarizing it here. I will have that in the description. So what I want to let you guys know is that a lot of these tablets will say, oh, 120, 140% of sRGB. It's a great tablet. That is not something you should pay attention to. Any number that's above 100% is not going to really help you. Okay, so what we really want to know is that there are a few different types of color gamuts, and those color gamuts are created for different purposes. NTSC, which you see a lot of these tablets mentioning. This is the National Television Standards Committee. It has a very large range and it's focused on television. So 72% of this gamut has the same amount of colors as sRGB. sRGB is an efficient online browsing spectrum. So most displays, almost all displays, are going to try to be able to hit and show all colors in sRGB. Right? That's why you see that one mentioned pretty frequently. It's the one most of us should care about because we're posting most of our content to social media, and that's how people are going to enjoy our work. Next up is Adobe RGB, and that one is created mainly for photography and print. It also has a little bit wider range than sRGB, pretty significantly wider range. And then the one after that we'll talk about is Display P3 or DCI P3. That one is used for film usually. So YouTube, Apple, Netflix, they use that. My iPad uses that as a standard. And so a lot of apps kind of optimize towards that range. That one is also bigger than sRGB, and it skews a little bit more towards the greens, I believe, and RGB tends to go towards the reds more. So when you see 140, when you see 72% and they use that as a conversion ratio, or they only list NTSC, you can't be sure that it's going to exactly give you what you need. You need to make sure that you see this percentage of this range. So if you see something like XP Pen, they list the 16TP, they list it at 92% of Adobe RGB. You can trust them there because, well, kind of. Yeah, it's better to just calibrate it if you want to really be sure and get a color calibrator, but I don't have one of those, unfortunately. But When they say that, if that's area or coverage, it doesn't matter. They said Adobe RGB, so you know you're getting 92% of Adobe RGB. Hopefully they aren't lying and saying it's the same amount of colors and slightly getting away with it, and the fine print is something else in the documents that the legal needs to see, right? Hopefully they're not doing that. But Wacom will actually say different coverage rates and area rates for like their newest tablet, the Wacom Cintiq 16 Pro. It's only 88% of Adobe RGB, but it's about 96% of the amount of colors. So it shows the same amount of colors, but not the exact same range. And they're pretty transparent with that for at least that tablet. And if they don't list that color range that's important to us, usually Adobe RGB, then you want to be a little bit wary of that tablet. Now, to be honest, another thing that we have to consider is that unfortunately, color is pretty subjective. If you're an artist, you're probably one of the few people in the world that can see quite a bigger range of colors than most people. I know I can. There's some color tests you can take online to see how many different shades you can perceive. So that is always going to be up for discussion. The best tablets out there are going to be the Cintiq Pro line, specifically the 24-inch, and then after that, the 32-inch. They have 99 and 98% of Adobe RGB respectively, but Wacom recommends that you use a color calibrator to get them to be even more perfect. But even then, these tablets are old, right? They don't get updated every year. So unfortunately, they're still not going to come close to a typical monitor like the ones I have over there that can do P3 and Adobe RGB in the high 90s. And they're still not going to come close to something like a glossy monitor because those look even better. So these tablets like the iPad Pro tend to look even better, or the Samsung tend to look really, really good compared to these, unfortunately. So for example, for this tablet, the 24-inch, Huion does not list Adobe RGB. They just say it has 140% of sRGB, and then they say it's 98% NTSC. We don't know if they're doing the conversions, but 98% of NTSC is great if you're doing TV stuff. So that's good. And then unfortunately, Wacom doesn't even list sRGB for the Wacom One, so we just have to take their word for it. They say 72% of NTSC. Another thing to note that's related to color is brightness. So when you're looking at a screen, the colors are the most vibrant, usually around medium brightness, not the brightest and not the dimmest. And so these displays tend to not have very bright screens compared to something like the iPad Pro or the Samsung or your phone, right? Those need to have high brightness because you're using them outdoors. But these tablets, you're not using them outdoors. You want to use them, relatively dim compared to everything else so that you can see the colors more accurately. I do find, however, that the brightness for the XP Pen TP can be a little bit too dim. It looks pretty bright on screen because of how the camera works, but it's the dimmest out of all of these. This one I've dimmed down to be perfect, the Huion, but it can get quite a bit brighter. But the thing is that you only need one cable to power it, which is awesome. Like there's only one cable going to my laptop. And if you plug in another one, it does get brighter, but just a little bit brighter. So the Wacom One, it's honestly brighter than this, but you do have to connect it to a certain power source, like a power brick, and it can't be like a little rinky-dink power brick. It has to be reasonable, or else it's just going to flash Wacom on and off. But it gets relatively bright. Unfortunately, I can't change the brightness because of the drivers on the Wacom. The drivers on the M1 Max that I'm using here to power all this is kind of weird and wonky, but it looks pretty good. And the brightness is solid. It's just the viewing angles are not really great at all. Whereas I would say the viewing angles on all of these tablets here are pretty good. I'm going to have to say the Huion's viewing angles are not the best. Now, viewing angles aren't that serious because you're not going to be, when you're using a tablet, you're going to be looking at it. But the iPad's viewing angles are the best here. Then I'd say the XP Pen, then the Huion, then the Wacom. The Wacom just gets super dim, the Wacom 13-1. And then I would also say when it comes to the colors, let's go ahead and turn off some of the lights here. But the XP Pen has a little bit of a red hue cast to it compared to the Wacom. You can see it's just like a little bit sharper. Like if you look at the colors, you can see more of the oranges and the hand really pops out and it's crisp, right? And this isn't even the native resolution. Its resolution for the screen right now is set to scale at 4K, where this tablet isn't 4K. But you can see just how much more crispy that looks than the XP Pen, right? That just looks more vibrant and poppy. This has a kind of an orange faded out cast to it, and you can see that contrast. This is much more how I intended for the image to look. Since the Wacom 1 won that round, looking at the Huion and the Wacom 1 here, you can see just this depth and contrast here and how orangey and kind of faded out the Wacom 1 looks. Yeah, the colors are quite a bit more accurate on the Huion canvas here. And if I look back, actually, yeah, the Wacom is just really nice looking at it on the screen here. And none of my settings are changing automatically there, or at least they shouldn't be. But yeah, when you look at this difference, it's a big difference here. And this isn't even as bright as it can go. It looks like it might be bluer, but in reality, this is just too orangey. Now let's look at the iPad, which is like a crazy jump here. Now, when I'm looking at the two screens or looking at it on a display, I cannot see much of a difference. It's honestly, so at this point, I would say the difference in color is not that big a deal. It's pretty damn accurate, not gonna lie. And this is not calibrated. So I'd say the Huion's pretty damn good. It's pretty much on par with the iPad for at least this comparison right now. I will say the viewing angles are way better on the iPad. Sharper on the iPad because of its glossy screen, but it's right there. Definitely have good things to say about the Huion in terms of color and crispness. It does have the rainbow effect, to be honest, on the whites, but it's not blurry. It's pretty damn sharp. Now, getting into glossy versus matte screens, glossy screens look better, but they don't deal with glare very well. It's very hard to deal with glare. So I'm actually going to turn this light back on so you guys can see me. But yeah, sometimes with tablets, they'll have a film built in, or they'll have etched glass. The etched glass is usually the preferred solution because it has less chances of adding kind of these rainbow effect artifacts. And it tends to feel a little bit better, but to be honest, they all kind of feel the same. They all sound and kind of feel the same when it comes to roughness. So that's pretty good. Of course, the plastic tablets will be completely different, way more rougher. But yeah, the one thing I will say though is that the XP pen is very nice to look at because of its sharpness. I don't know if I'll be able to show you that comparison here because I need to really bring in that little blurry Cintiq 16. But oh man, the sharpness of the display is nice. Let me try and zoom in here. Let's see if I can show that to you guys. Yeah, I don't know if I can, but because the icons are really small here. But trust me when I say that the XP pen looks quite nice when it comes to sharpness and crispness, just because it's glossy, much closer to the iPad in terms of crispness and how enjoyable it is to look at compared to the Huion or the Wacom 1, for example. I will say though that the Huion, even though it is crisp, it can feel a little bit jagged sometimes, like it's not anti-aliased or whatever, but it's still pretty nice to look at. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's blurry by any means. One thing I'll also mention is that yes, the iPad is glossy and extremely glary. You know, the glare is a big deal, but if you notice, you don't see any glare right now, right? And you don't see any glare on the Huion. But if I turn on my lights to the side of it, you see that there is some glare on the Huion, but it's nicely diffused. But what you notice is there's still no glare on my iPad. Why is that? Because the iPad's smaller. So because of the size of the device, glare is less of an issue because you can always move it around, and because it's small, you can kind of get it out of range of the light. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The smaller the tablet, I find glare is less and less and less of an issue. Now, when it comes to lamination, the only tablet I have here that isn't laminated is going to be the Wacom 1. And so lamination basically means, is the display actually flush and lined up really close to the glass or plastic, as depends on which type of tablet you're using. And if it's really close, then it feels like you're drawing directly on the surface of the actual display. But if it's not, you're going to notice a gap. And so how that looks is that it pretty much looks like if you were to just take somebody who doesn't draw at all and they were to take a pen and put it down here, they would be like, oh, it's offset. It looks like it's offset, but in reality, there's a gap there, a window gap. And unless you're looking directly over the pen, you're going to see the gap of the glass, and then that's going to look like it's not aligned. It's basically perfect when it comes to mobile tablets. Just going to say that now. It's incredibly good on both the Samsung and the Apple Pencil. But when it comes to the Huion, there is still a gap. It is still fairly noticeable. It's like, what, 1/16 of an inch? I said the Huion has like a gap, but it's the same gap that you would see on the Cintiq. It's not no gap. They try to say that in advertising, but there is one. And to be honest, the difference between the Wacom One is not that big a deal. It's like, I can't even say it's quite double. It's close to double, but it's already like a 1/16 of an inch. It's just not going to get there unless you're using a mobile tablet like an iPad or a Samsung technology where the Ultra is like ridiculously thin. So it is what it is. So now we're going to move on to my favorite topic, and hear my voice getting a little bit hoarse. I will try to power through this, but my favorite one is going to be pen pressure calibration. So this is the ultimate thing that makes the digital art experience real for me, like trying to emulate reality. So basically, all tablets nowadays advertise having 8,192 levels of pressure, right? Oh, okay, great. Oh, we all have pressure. They have pressure sensitivity. You can create a thick and a thin brush stroke, right? Great. Yes, we know that. But here's the thing. Let me try to create a diagram for you guys. So let me do a little bit smaller of a stroke and then erase the canvas here, like that. Basically, as I'm showing you the B-roll, let's make a map of 20 grams and 300 grams, which is what I noticed when I was actually trying to draw. I put my hand somewhere else and I tried to draw on the scale. Whereas the Wacom, I can set it to be where I feel like I'm going to break the nib, and it still is like, you're not doing maximum pressure yet. So that's the big difference. That's what you're paying for with these different devices. This pressure sensitivity is pretty big difference to me. And I can prove it to you because I will show you these softwares all have one common thing in mind, common denominator, and they have a little scale to show you the difference. So I can actually show you an example really quick here. You can see that when I go to digital pen and I go to pressure setting, you can see how it goes up and down. On every single other device I have here today, I find it is relatively similar to how Wacom's pressure curve works. But with the Huion, it is extremely sensitive. Even if I set it to hard, I set it as low as I can, I find it just clips the bottom end. It's incredibly difficult to make a line. And the moment I press up, it's like, boom, max pressure. You see it, right? I cannot for the life of me get it to stay around 75%. But if you have a very light touch, very light, and maybe you want to measure for yourself how much grams of force you put when you naturally draw, and you find it's very light, then this will be a great tablet for you. If you're just starting out and you're not used to any other tablets, this will be a great tablet for you. I'm just one person. This could be a fluke, but I've got to say, for this, I have to change my software and brush settings because I can get it to work. I can draw pretty decent stuff in here. I just have to change the flow setting in Photoshop to like 9.6%. But for any other tablet, I don't have to do much changing. I don't have to tweak much. I can still use the same brushes, the same workflow I've always used. Just have to get used to it for like an hour or two. So that's my spiel on pressure, pen pressure, how much force it spreads out those levels across that you actually apply is important. And that's something nobody's talking about. Really quickly for part 11 for display mirroring features, that's really just going to be between the iPad Pro and the Samsung Galaxy tablet, the S8. They have some cool mirroring features. So the iPad has Sidecar, Duet Display, and AstroPad, and then the Samsung has Second Display and Super Display. I believe there are some other options, but Second Display is actually designed by Samsung. It's the OG thing, but Super Display is a third-party app that works even better, and it has, especially when plugged in, it has like almost no latency. So I'm gonna probably make an entire other video for that, but you can pretty much, like, the Samsung is pretty much go time for using as a Cintiq. The iPad is still laggy on all of those different applications. I'm pretty sure those different options, and it's not really prime time yet to be used as a full-fledged Cintiq. but it's really good for photography work and stuff. So, all right, for the last one, number 12, portability, an easy one. You know it's going to be these mobile tablets, the iPad Air, the Samsung Galaxy Tab Ultra, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 right here, and the iPad Pro, all going to be your most portable solutions. Depending on how you want to describe portability, the 16-inch tablets here, like the Wacom 16 Pro, is still pretty portable in the sense that it's going to be around the same size as a laptop, really, and you can still just toss it in a bag. And especially the 13-inch Wacom One here, which is still an awesome display, it's still going to be pretty portable, and it's going to be light too, light and smaller than this one. Now, when it comes to battery life, that is a big component of portability. So unfortunately, I will say that the Samsung Galaxy Tab Ultra does not have the best battery life because I don't know why. It's just not really well optimized, I guess. So I do notice it going down fairly quickly when I'm using it. But when I'm not using it, it holds its own pretty damn well, just like the iPad does. To be honest, unless you're going to be in a Windows environment, using things like Google Drive and Dropbox is perfectly fine for you to be able to transfer files quickly if you're using an iPad, and then everything you have outside of that is Windows. All right, so now I'm going to turn this on and let's get into my budget recommendations for the 8 types of people that I've come up with that you might need a little bit of a suggestion for. So I'm going to try my best. Just sit back, relax, pretend that you are walking into the drawing store, the digital art store, and I'm your guest, Ergo Josh, and you just sit back and relax, and you're on a moving couch, and I'm just going to take you through everything that we have to share and offer and ask you questions. I actually already know everything because you filled out a questionnaire. So I will be your guide tonight, and hopefully you will have a fantastic idea of what you want to get after this. I will say for the budget conscious, so this is the first category, you are budget focused, budget conscious, that's what you want. I would recommend for sub $400 that you go ahead and get the Wacom Intuos Medium for $150. Or you move up a little bit and get the ZenSlabs Pen Tablet Medium, which is the one I've been showing you here today, this one, for $280. And my recommendation for that is because that Intuos tablet, not the Pro, just the regular Intuos Medium, was the first one I started on in 2013, and it carried me through a lot of my work in college, and I learned a lot of stuff on it, and it wasn't too expensive. I asked my dad to get it for me for my birthday, and I was good to go. And for the ZenSlabs, it's a solid medium size, and the quality is pretty much on par with Wacom, and there's a lot of pros to getting the ZenSlabs tablet. Next up, we're moving on to the $400 to $1,000 range. So I would recommend 2 things here. The iPad Air with the Apple Pencil at $728 USD, and that's pretty much redundant. But yeah, this is a solid drawing device. I have some nice legs here for you to look at, some knees that I spent again, look at this, trying to paint this with the hue and pressure sensitivity would be a pain. Look at this, right? Like, it's focusing on my face, but it was a very nice experience making those final details on here. And the iPad Air is like the same thing as the iPad Pros, it's just smaller. For a little bit more or less, you can get the XP Pen TP. Now, that's the one that I had that I showed you, only needed 1 cable, which is awesome. And the cool thing is I bought it for this goddamn video for $900, like a little bit less than $900, but it's on sale when I was making the script for $675. So XP Pen, they be doing hella sales and stuff. So it's cheaper than the iPad Air, a 4K 16-inch tablet with its own pen is cheaper than the iPad Air right now, and it's pretty good. So I would really recommend that for somebody who has that budget. Like, it's really nice to be able to have 4K there. The next bracket is going to be the $1,000 to $3,000 range, and so I would immediately recommend the Wacom Cintiq 24. You're going to have best in class, pretty much color accuracy, a maxed out iPad Pro, or you don't need to max it out, but that's going to get you around, that's going to put you at $1,500. By the way, the Cintiq Pro 24 is going to be $2,000 to $2,500. I don't recommend getting touch. Get a keypad, like I mentioned. Don't worry about using touch. Save you that $500 to get a stand for it. Or sorry, not a stand. No stands. Get the arm. Get the Wacom Ergo arm. And then, or you can try getting out a pretty decent Galaxy Ultra. Don't get the maxed out version. It's not going to help you that much. That was all the first category. I was just doing different budgets. So that was the 3 budgets. And for the next category is going to be people who are mobile focused. You want mobility. You want to be able to move around. You don't want to be stuck at a chair. That's not how you're going to do this, but you do want to draw. Immediately, I just recommend for you iPad Air and Apple Pencil. Really, any iPad, but iPad Air is a really, really great deal. You can do anything you want with it. And I believe they might be putting in the M1 chip in there, which in the future might have some good returns if they actually let us have professional apps on there, but you get the best bang for the buck, and it has a wide selection of incredibly good applications in the store. And this is followed by the next category, the person who needs everything in one thing. They want everything. Give me the best deal in sense of what can do everything. I want to work on big canvases. I want to work on animation. I want to work on digital art. I want to work on 3D art. You can do it with this device, and you know it's going to be, again, the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, the M1 iPad Pro for that matter, and the Apple Pencil. It's extremely versatile. It's great, but I will also kind of recommend the Galaxy Ultra here because there are some other apps available other than Clip Studio Paint, and that ability to really pair it as a Cintiq for the Windows computer is very nice. More on that in another video though. Now for the beginner but you are also experienced with art, again, iPad Pro, I'm going to say it again. It has great colors. The screen is much easier to look at than with no screen. Apps like Procreate and Ibis Paint and the simpler apps have really, really good immediate low latency feel to them, but they also have a lot of professional brushes in there that feel very easy and reminiscent of the tools that you use traditionally. And a lot of professionals use an iPad. Like, I'm talking some serious painters, like my favorites, James Jean and Eliza Ivanova. They use the iPad and they enjoy it. They make stuff on it that's professional, and I'm very impressed. They make the same quality work there. And so if you're a beginner, but you know art, you're just beginner at digital, I recommend iPad Pro. Can't go wrong. Now, specifically for people who are beginner at everything, I don't necessarily recommend the iPad Pro, just the regular iPad plus the first gen Apple Pencil, or the Samsung S8. Great option. It's going to be cheaper. Get the S7 FE or something older. That'll be great for you too. Or if you don't want that, get an Intuos Pro or ZenSlabs Medium for even cheaper. That'll be great. If you want to have maximum flexibility to try out everything, really recommend the standard tablets above anything else, because that is what's going to give you flexibility. Honestly, you're going to be able to use it with Windows and Mac. You're going to be able to use it with anything. You can use ZBrush with it. You can't do that with an iPad, right? You can't use that with a Samsung. Best bang for your buck, really. Also, I guess you can use it with a Samsung if you use it as a Cintiq, but this is the most reliable. And if you buy one of these and you end up not liking it, it doesn't break the bank. And it's honestly good to have these if you're a photographer, video editor, so many other lines of work. So really recommend them. Now, here's another type of person. You're the person who does professional art prints, or you want to do precision line work. You're doing a lot of graphic stuff and get into the nitty-gritty details. I'm going to recommend for you the Wacom Cintiq Pro 16 or 24. 24 has the best color representation out there with 99% of Adobe RGB, which is the only one you need to worry about. And it's got nice size ratio to it with the resolution of the screen. And again, the Wacom brand is going to be reliable for years to come. If you're doing this stuff for a living and you're going to be making money with this stuff, you'll be able to get a tax write-off for it with your prints and all that. Just get the best thing, invest in it, and move on. It's also really great to have the 16 or 24 inch because it's easier to kind of visualize what your prints are going to look at, especially at 4K, because the sizes are similar to 11 by 17s and, you know, the 24 inch bigger prints that you can have. It's much easier to kind of size that on the screen and get a feel for it since you can see the whole thing in front of you. So for my freelance people, my people who are doing it big, concept artists, whatever you are, I'm going to recommend again the Cintiq 24 or the Huion 24 because those are fantastic devices. Actually, the queen herself, one of the queens out there for me, TV Choi just did a little demo with the Huion 24, and yeah, it's a solid device. Like I said, just has incredibly high sensitivity, but it is robust, just as well made as the Cintiq 24. maybe a little bit less, but it's like it's really just aesthetics. It's a very solid device. It's quiet. It has no fans. So it's kind of good for content creation. And so being able to have a good size to have different things on the screen, you could be replying to an email, looking at references and painting at the same time, being able to have space to have your Razer Tartarus or whatever keyboard macro you have and your keyboard glued to the top edge of the Cintiq or something. One of my friends has a Stream Deck. Can I get this on camera? Like this, attached here to her Cintiq 32. Like it's ingenious. I used to have it like that myself. Like it works really, really well. And you want that 4K for maximum compatibility if you're doing stuff for video or 2D, because you want to be able to deliver a 4K content if it's required of you. And some splash arts get up to like 16,000 pixels, I've heard. So a 4K canvas is going to help with that. So, and it's also really good for workflows in the office, right? If you transition back and forth, that might be something you end up doing in your freelance career. Having an arm with a Cintiq of this size is pretty typical. So having that flexibility, I have a friend who's worked in different studios already and has gone back and forth between an office, and this is the kind of lifestyle. This is the type of setup you have, and having that familiarity can be helpful when transitioning. So now we are at my last category here. It's my favorite one, and it is the money is no object category. And this one is split into two here. And so, yeah, the first one is a 2-tablet setup. This is the one that's very common. Basically, you're going to want a Cintiq Pro 24 for all the reasons I already mentioned. It's great. It's a solid tablet. It's going to be very reliable. And you're also going to want an iPad Pro for on-the-go tasks. This could be an iPad Air, depending on how big your hands are and how much you want to carry around. But yeah, an iPad Pro and a Cintiq 24 or Huion 24, great for you. A lot of people ask me, which is the best? Like they'll ask me when they see the video, what's the overall best? There's no overall best. There's things that you can do with certain tablets and things that you can't do. So having 2 tablets is really, really nice to be able to have that level of flexibility. However, I will say if you were to make me only have 1 tablet, I would pick the most flexible and versatile of them all, which would be my iPad Pro. It is incredibly reliable. I love how the pen works, and it is reasonably powerful. I can go back and forth with the paintings I do for myself that are like 10,000 pixels that I want to use as prints or use as banners for my website or have as a mural one day. The next category is basically the 4-tablet person, or me, the insane person. So you might be like, okay, Josh, this is where I'm checking out, but hear me out here. There's a reason for it. So basically you have the Wacom 32. The 32 inch is like no other, right? It's amazingly large, and it's got a relatively fast latency, pretty fast, honestly. And it's great for large gestural drawings. You draw differently when you use it. You're going to start drawing like Glenn Keane and all the animators. like I'm pretty sure Aaron Blaze has one. Yeah, it's just amazing. And when you're a content creator and you stream, you can have your references and chat on the same screen and have everything on just one screen, have a one-screen setup. It's really good. I will say I don't know what it is, I just hate drawing on it because I don't like not being able to see the whole picture, and I hate making new sketches and new designs on it. So I love having a 16-inch Wacom Cintiq Pro that's 4K as well, so I can get in nitty-gritty, and I love being able to see the whole image at a glance, and I love sketching in that environment because it's like my iPad, right? Honestly, the only reason I have that, instead of just relying on my iPad Pro, the apps. I can't have Photoshop. I can't paint in Photoshop full scale, So I want to be able to do that and have applications and be able to filter things. I want access to all of my applications, and I want to be able to use them freely. So that's why I still want to have that Cintiq when I want to do that small time. And sometimes the Cintiq is just taking too much space and I move it somewhere. And then the last, of course, I'm going to have my iPad for portability. That's already given, right? But then the last tablet is honestly my Intuos Pro Large, which I pulled out here. I keep this around because I might want to video edit. I might want to just, when I'm lazy or my eyes hurt and I'm tired of looking at a screen or hunching down, I just want to sit down and have this I'll have it like this. This is the setup I typically have it at, slightly propped up. And I'll be editing like this. I'm going to do this later when I finish the video. and I'll be moving files around between two screens, tap a button, I'll tap this button back to my editing window and I'm editing, right? And I'm moving things and I'm moving sliders and I'm scrolling and I'm like a DJ. I have my Moonlander here. It's great. Having this around is always good to have. And this one has touch too. You don't need to get one with touch, but having a small one is just as good. So I really enjoy having all these 4 different tablets for everything that I do, but it's insane. And it isn't really that money is no object. It's just that this is my job and I've been doing it for long enough to where I can afford all these tablets or have them given to me by donation. Whew, okay, we're finally done with all those comparisons. I actually don't know. I'm just recording this right after I did the intro. I hope that was worth all the work. Future self, I'm sorry. It's going to be a ton of work. But I really hope that was helpful for you all because I spent weeks in advance to creating this video, actually using these tablets for my actual artwork, not just doing, diagonal line tests. I wanted to see what it was like to use it and impart that knowledge into you, the viewer, the consumer. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I will be paying quite a bit of attention to the comments section of this video and trying to answer as many questions as I can. However, be aware that if you ask me about tablets, like what about this tablet? Like if I haven't used it, I'm not going to know much more about it than you would. So just keep that in mind. I'll try to make a suggestion if I feel like I can, but try to focus your questions on tablets that I have used. That will give you the best result. Now, in terms of finding information on those tablets, I really recommend that you check out Brad Colbo. He's like the de facto guy for all the facts about all the tablets and all the brands and all the different price brackets. And then I also encourage you to find artists that you already like that have done reviews on those types of tablets. So Mark Brunet comes to mind pretty quickly, and then Likelihood Arts as well. I really love their work. They know what they're doing, and when they review stuff, you can actually see them using the tablet usually. So I recommend you check out different YouTubers like that for more information. There's also Adam Duff as well. He does some tablet. He says he does a lot of tech reviews actually in the art community. And if you're into more tech stuff for art, I'm almost done with my studio update. It's not really going to be a whole studio tour, maybe. I'm really just focusing on my desk. It's like nearly done. I'm very proud of it. But it's just like 90% done. I've just got to do some more cable management and then order a few little things here and there and just clean up and then start filming. So stay tuned for that. I am really looking forward to this video. This one is going to be, this is a step up. This is a level up. I'm really proud of it. Also, let me know if you are interested in another kind of side video to this one where I compare the iPad and the Mac environment compared to the Samsung Galaxy tablets in a Windows environment, because the Samsung Ultra, the S8 Ultra is really compelling to use as kind of like a little mini Cintiq. It's very smooth when you use it with Super Display, so I'm more interested in checking that kind of stuff out, and maybe I can help you out if you're trying to get like the one tablet to do it all. We've also got WWDC coming up, and it looks like there is a chance that Apple might actually make use of the M1 chips in the new iPad Pro, so that could be very interesting. And for the rest of you, please do not worry. I am still an artist. I'm not just completely switching to tech. I just love this stuff, and I think you guys like it as well. I am still drawing and doing a lot of anatomy stuff. You've probably seen it on Instagram or maybe in my stories or in the content I showed drawing with these tablets. I'm looking forward to making more videos, channel memberships, and more content like that. If you're on my Patreon, you've already been seeing some of the fruits, but it's just taking time. I've got these big videos planned in advance that I need to get done before I can really start pumping out stuff related to that again. But it's still here. We're still doing anatomy stuff. We're still drawing figures and bodies and muscles and bones and all that. So that's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting me over these many great years, and I will see you all in the next one. Keep drawing and stay positive. Peace. All right, so now it's time for the disclaimer. First point is that I have used Wacom tablets for the majority of my time creating art digitally online, as well as now Apple products as well. So I'm the most familiar with those. Now, when it comes to tablets that I have purchased with my own money, I have purchased the XP Pen here with my own money. Also, the Wacom 16 Pro here with my own money. I did not purchase the Wacom one here that was provided to me over a year ago for a different video, but I still have it. When we look at here, the Wacom Intuos Large, I purchased that with my own money. Then we have the ZenSlabs tablet that was provided to me by ZenSlabs for another video. I think that was over a year ago too, but I still have it. They are not aware of this video, neither is Wacom. I purchased the Samsung tablets with my own money, and I purchased both of the iPads with my own money. Apple or Samsung is not aware of this video at all. I have never spoken with them. The Cintiq 32-inch, however, that you kind of can see, see, it's giant. This was provided to me by Wacom 2 years ago, but again, they're not aware of the creation of this video. I just still have it because I really love it. Now, the Huion is different. Huion, I reached out to Huion so that they could provide this tablet for me for this video. I did not purchase it, and Huion is aware of this video, but they don't get to see it in advance. They don't have any input on what I say. They could get super mad and tell me to send it back to them, and I will if they want to. But yeah, you'll know by the things I've probably already said in the video that it doesn't change my opinion for anything. But that's up to you to decide, not me. Just trying to give you all the disclaimers here, all the important facts. I also do not have any affiliate links with any of the 5 brands here active on any of my videos at the time of the recording. If you go buy one of these tablets, I'm not going to get any money from it unless you use like an Amazon link, which is just like a default thing that happens. I get like tiny percentage, but other than that, no affiliate groups with any of these brands are active right now. Now, when it comes to tablets that I have owned myself but no longer have, that is going to be the Wacom 24 Pro, the Wacom Cintiq 24 Pro, 24 inches. Also, that's going to be the Wacom Cintiq 16 Pro, the first iteration that came out. I sold that to somebody at some point. I also owned the Wacom Intuos Pro Medium at a certain point. I don't know where that one is actually. And I also owned the Wacom Intuos, just the general one, Medium. That was like my first tablet. So that one, I also have no idea where it is. All right, so that's it for the disclaimers. Go back to the beginning of the video now that you're educated on all of my biases, and hopefully you can make a very, very educated purchasing decision.